Learning to accept. Buddha's teachings to help you overcome suffering and live peacefully. In this life, everyone goes through moments of disappointment, loss, or pain. Some people try to resist and fight against what's happening, thinking that if they can control it, they'll find peace. But the truth is, the more we resist reality, the more we suffer. The Buddha taught that suffering doesn't come from what happens outside us, but from how we relate to it. Our attachment, our aversion, our refusal to let things be as they are. And that's where acceptance becomes the key to peace. 1. What does it mean to accept? To accept doesn't mean to give up or to tolerate unfairness blindly. Acceptance means seeing reality as it truly is, without denial, without exaggeration, without trying to make it fit our expectations. The Buddha called this right view, seeing things clearly as they are. When you accept, you stop saying, "It shouldn't have happened," and begin to say, "It has happened. Now how can I respond with understanding and compassion?" This small shift changes everything. It transforms resistance into wisdom, anger into understanding, and despair into clarity. 2. Why is acceptance so hard? Because our minds are wired to cling to pleasure and reject pain. We want things to be pleasant, convenient, and comfortable, but life doesn't follow our wishes. When life gives us what we like, we're happy. When it gives us what we dislike, we suffer. That's what the Buddha called dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness of clinging. He said, what you resist persists. What you let go of flows. We can't control what happens, but we can learn to relax into the reality of the moment instead of tightening ourselves against it. Acceptance doesn't mean passivity. It means acting wisely from a calm mind instead of reacting blindly from pain. 3. Acceptance, the foundation of mindfulness. Every teaching of the Buddha leads us back to mindfulness, sati, the ability to be present, aware, and open to this very moment. When you practice mindfulness, you don't run away from what's happening. You don't try to fix it right away. You simply observe with kindness and curiosity. Whether it's joy, sadness, anger, or fear, you notice it, and you whisper to yourself, "This too is part of life." That gentle acknowledgement is acceptance. You stop fighting the wave and start learning to float with it. Over time, that practice builds inner peace, the peace that doesn't depend on the outside world. Acceptance begins with understanding suffering. The Buddha's first teaching after enlightenment was the Four Noble Truths. He said, 1. Life contains suffering, dukkha. 2. Suffering has a cause, craving and clinging. 3. There is an end to suffering, nirodha. 4. The path to that end is the Noble Eightfold Path. So the Buddha didn't tell us to escape pain. He invited us to understand it deeply, and from that understanding, freedom arises. When you can say, yes, this is suffering, but it's also impermanent, then you no longer drown in it. You see that every feeling, every circumstance comes and goes, just like clouds drifting across the sky. That's the heart of acceptance, seeing the impermanent nature of everything. The peace that comes from letting life be. When we stop fighting reality, life suddenly feels lighter. We realize we don't have to control everything to be okay. We can breathe, relax, and allow things to unfold in their own time. As the Buddha taught, let go of what is not yours. When you let go, peace will come. Acceptance doesn't change what's happening, but it changes your relationship to it. And that's where peace is born. Because peace is not the absence of problems, it's the presence of wisdom. Part 2. Why we suffer when we can't accept. Everyone wants happiness, yet most of us unknowingly build the causes of suffering every day. We get upset when things don't go our way, cling tightly when something feels good, and struggle endlessly when life changes. The Buddha said that the root of suffering is craving and attachment, our inability to accept the impermanent nature of life. 1. The trap of wanting life to be different. Have you ever noticed how much energy we spend wishing life were different? We say things like, if only I had a better job. If only that person loved me more. If only I hadn't made that mistake. We keep running after if-onlys, but the moment we get what we want, another desire appears, and the cycle of dissatisfaction continues. The Buddha compared this to a dog chasing its own tail. No matter how fast it runs, it never catches what it's after. When we refuse to accept things as they are, we resist reality, and resistance is suffering. 2. The illusion of control. Many of us believe we can control everything, that if we just work harder, think smarter, or try longer, life will finally obey our plans. But reality has its own flow. People change, health fades, unexpected things happen. Trying to control life is like trying to command the ocean's waves. You'll only exhaust yourself. The Buddha reminded us, everything that arises will also cease. When you truly understand this, you begin to loosen your grip on how things should be. You learn to move with life instead of against it, and that's when peace starts to appear. 3. How resistance creates double suffering. Pain is inevitable. But suffering, the inner struggle against pain, is optional. When something painful happens, we often add layers of judgment, anger, or blame on top of it. That's called double suffering. For example, you lose your job. That's pain. You tell yourself, I'm worthless, this shouldn't have happened. That's suffering. The Buddha taught, we are not punished for our anger, we are punished by our anger. Acceptance doesn't remove the initial pain, but it prevents the mind from creating extra suffering around it. It allows us to see the situation clearly and respond wisely. 4. The mind that can't accept lives in conflict. A mind that refuses to accept is always in battle, with the past, with others, and even with itself. We replay old memories, reopen old wounds, and tell ourselves stories like, it shouldn't have happened that way. But the past is already gone. Only our attachment keeps it alive. When you can accept that what happened, happened, you stop feeding that inner war. Then, energy once used for regret and resentment can finally be used for healing and growth. 5. Acceptance frees you from comparison. Another common source of suffering is comparison. We constantly compare ourselves with others, their looks, their wealth, their happiness, their success. But comparison is the thief of peace. The Buddha taught that peace comes from knowing enough. He said, contentment is the greatest wealth. When you accept your life as it is, your pace, your path, your unique lessons, you no longer chase the illusion that someone else's life is better. You realize that true joy isn't found in having more, but in needing less. 6. The wisdom hidden inside pain. Every form of pain carries a message. If you listen deeply, you'll hear it whisper, it's time to let go. Sometimes life takes away what we cling to most, not to punish us, but to teach us freedom. The Buddha said, the wise see suffering as a teacher. When we stop resisting pain and start understanding it, we discover compassion for ourselves and for others who suffer too. That's how pain becomes a doorway to wisdom. 7. The gift of acceptance. Once you begin to practice acceptance, life doesn't become perfect, but your heart becomes peaceful. You start seeing things as they are, not as your mind demands them to be. When something pleasant comes, you enjoy it. When it passes, you smile and let it go. When difficulties arise, you face them with calmness, knowing that they too will pass. As the Buddha said, Whatever arises, passes away. When you see this, you are free. That is the essence of acceptance and the beginning of peace. Part 3. The wisdom of acceptance in the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha's path is not about escaping life, but about seeing life clearly, understanding it so deeply that peace naturally arises. He didn't ask us to suppress our emotions or ignore pain. He invited us to look directly at what is happening, and through awareness, to discover freedom in the very heart of suffering. Acceptance in this sense is not passive. It is an active, mindful understanding of how life truly works. 1. Seeing things as they are, Yathabhuta Jnana Dasana. The Buddha often used the phrase Yathabhuta Jnana Dasana, seeing things as they truly are. It means we stop viewing life through the fog of expectations, memories, or judgments. We no longer insist that things should match our desires. Instead, we simply observe, this is the way things are right now. When you can see clearly, without clinging, without aversion, you begin to experience what the Buddha called insight wisdom, vipassana. It is not a belief. It is a direct seeing, a quiet realization that everything changes, nothing is mine, and peace arises when I stop fighting change. 2. The teaching of impermanence, anicca. One of the Buddha's most profound teachings is anicca, impermanence. He said that everything conditioned is in constant flux. Whatever is born will die. Whatever begins will end. When you truly accept this truth, you stop being shocked when things change. You stop demanding permanence from what is by nature fleeting. Impermanence is not meant to make us sad. It is meant to free us. When you accept that everything changes, you also realize that pain will pass, loss will heal, and nothing stays the same forever. That understanding is the foundation of peace. 3. The teaching of non-self, anatta. The Buddha also taught anatta, non-self, or the absence of a permanent I. We often suffer because we take everything personally. We say, my pain, my failure, my loss. But when we look deeply, we see that everything is just a flow of causes and conditions. Body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, all arising and passing away. The Buddha said, this is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. When you accept that truth, you begin to let go of the endless struggle to protect a fragile me. You stop fighting life and instead move in harmony with it. That's not indifference. It's freedom from illusion. 4. The Four Noble Truths and Acceptance. The Buddha's entire teaching begins with acceptance. The very first noble truth is the truth of suffering, dukkha. He didn't deny suffering. He didn't say, be positive and it will go away. He said, see it, understand it. Only when we accept suffering as a natural part of human existence can we understand its cause, craving, and ignorance. And only through understanding can we find the path to peace. So, the Buddha's wisdom begins with honesty. This is pain. This is fear. This is change. Once you accept what is, you're no longer trapped in denial or resistance. And that moment of clear seeing is the beginning of liberation. 5. The practice of letting go, Vosaga. Acceptance and letting go are like two wings of a bird. You can't have one without the other. When you accept something, you stop clinging to how you wish it to be. That's the first step of letting go. Letting go doesn't mean rejection. It means relaxing your grip. The Buddha used a beautiful image. Just as a person who lets go of a burning coal stops being burned, so does the one who lets go of attachment stop suffering. You don't need to throw away life or feelings. You simply stop holding them so tightly. In that space of openness, peace naturally arises. 6. Equanimity, upekkha, the fruit of acceptance. When you practice acceptance long enough, a quiet strength begins to grow inside, the quality the Buddha called upekkha, or equanimity. It's not cold detachment, but a steady calm that doesn't get shaken by every storm. Imagine a tree rooted deeply in the earth. The wind may blow, rain may fall, but the tree remains grounded. That's what happens when your heart learns acceptance. You can face joy and sorrow, gain and loss, praise and blame, without losing your balance. The Buddha called this the unshakable mind. He said, "The one who is wise is not carried away by pleasure or pain. They remain calm, seeing both as passing conditions." Equanimity is the natural fruit of true acceptance. 7. Acceptance and compassion go hand in hand. When we begin to accept our own suffering, we stop judging others for theirs. We realize that everyone is fighting a battle we cannot see. Everyone has fears, attachments, and losses to bear. Acceptance opens the door to compassion, karuna, a deep, gentle understanding that all beings wish to be free from suffering. The Buddha said, "When you see others as yourself, how can you harm anyone?" So the more we accept, the softer our hearts become. And the softer our hearts become, the more peaceful our world becomes. 8. Acceptance is a daily practice. The wisdom of acceptance is not something we achieve once and for all. It is something we practice moment by moment. When anger arises, pause and breathe. When sadness comes, let yourself feel it without drowning in it. When joy appears, enjoy it fully, knowing it too will pass. Every moment of awareness is an opportunity to practice acceptance. Over time, this practice becomes your natural way of living, calm, present, wise, and free. Part 4. Practicing acceptance in everyday life. The Buddha's wisdom is not meant to stay on temple walls or inside scriptures. It's meant to be lived, breathed into each moment of our daily life. Acceptance is a practice, not a theory. It's something we do with our hearts and minds, again and again, until it becomes a natural way of being. Here are some ways to bring acceptance into your everyday life. 1. Accepting yourself. The first step toward peace. Many people find it easier to forgive others than to forgive themselves. We carry guilt, regret, and self-blame for years. But how can we find peace if we're still at war with our own hearts? The Buddha said, "You, yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." To accept yourself means to see your imperfections clearly and still hold yourself with kindness. You can say, "Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I'm still learning, and that's okay." Acceptance doesn't mean denying the need for growth. It means growing from understanding, not from shame. When you stop rejecting who you are, you create the inner space for healing to begin. 2. Accepting others, letting people be who they are. Most of our frustration in relationships comes from wanting others to change. We think, if only they acted differently, I'd be happy. But everyone is walking their own path, with their own wounds, karma, and lessons to learn. The Buddha taught, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Acceptance doesn't mean allowing abuse or injustice. It means letting go of the illusion that you can control others. When you stop trying to reshape people according to your desires, you find peace within your own heart. You begin to relate with understanding, not expectation. And that's how love becomes unconditional. 3. Accepting change. Living with impermanence change is the nature of life. Everything we love, everything we fear, is constantly shifting. We suffer when we cling to what is meant to move. The Buddha said, everything changes. When you understand this deeply, you stop clinging to what cannot last. To practice acceptance, Try to notice the little changes each day, the morning light, your breath, the passing moods of your mind. Each moment teaches impermanence. When you embrace it, you stop fearing loss and start cherishing presence. That's when gratitude blossoms. 4. Accepting pain, turning suffering into strength. When pain comes, physical or emotional, our first reaction is to push it away, but resistance only makes it stronger. The Buddha encouraged us to do the opposite, to turn toward our pain with awareness. You can gently ask yourself, what is this pain teaching me? Sometimes pain shows us what truly matters. Sometimes it reminds us to slow down, to care for ourselves, to see the impermanence of everything we cling to. When you stop fighting pain and start listening to it, you transform suffering into wisdom. And slowly you realize, I can be at peace even with what hurts. 5. Accepting uncertainty, trusting the flow of life. We crave certainty. We want to know what will happen tomorrow, who will stay, who will leave, how things will turn out. But life doesn't work that way. Uncertainty is not a mistake. It's life's way of teaching us trust. When we stop demanding guarantees, we start to live more freely, more presently. The Buddha said, do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. When you live this way, you begin to realize that not knowing is not something to fear. It's where life's mystery and beauty unfold. 6. Practicing acceptance in daily moments. Acceptance can be practiced anywhere, anytime. When someone cuts you off in traffic, breathe and let it go. When a loved one says something hurtful, pause before reacting. When plans fall apart, remind yourself, this too is part of life. You can even make acceptance a small daily ritual. In the morning, sit quietly for a minute and say, today I choose to let things be as they are. It sounds simple, but this gentle intention can change the entire tone of your day. Because peace doesn't come from perfect circumstances, it comes from a peaceful heart. 7. Acceptance and gratitude. Acceptance naturally gives birth to gratitude. When you stop fighting life, you begin to notice its quiet gifts. You see the beauty in ordinary things, the morning air, a smile, a simple meal. Gratitude doesn't mean everything is perfect. It means you appreciate life even when it isn't. The Buddha said, let us rise up and be thankful. If we didn't learn much today, at least we learned a little. If we didn't learn a little, at least we didn't get sick. If we got sick, at least we didn't die. So let us all be thankful. When gratitude and acceptance meet, the heart opens wide and peace quietly enters. 8. Acceptance as a daily meditation. If you wish to deepen your practice of acceptance, you can use it as a form of meditation. Each day, sit quietly and observe your breath. Let thoughts come and go like clouds. When emotions arise, don't push them away, don't hold them. Simply notice and whisper to yourself, this too belongs. This simple phrase, this too belongs, is one of the most healing truths you can live by. Because when you accept everything that arises within you, joy, pain, confusion, peace, you are no longer a prisoner of any of them. You become free. Part 5. When you learn to accept, peace naturally arises. At some point in life, we all realize there are things we cannot change, people we cannot control, and outcomes we cannot predict. It is in that moment, when we stop fighting reality, that peace quietly enters. The Buddha never promised a life without pain. He promised that through understanding, we can be free even in the midst of pain. Acceptance is the bridge between suffering and peace. When you walk across it, you step from resistance to freedom. 1. The peace that comes from surrender. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means trusting life enough to stop struggling against it. It means saying, I may not understand why this is happening right now, but I trust that life, in its own wisdom, knows what it's doing. When you surrender, you stop trying to push the river. You learn to float. The Buddha said, whatever has the nature to arise will also pass away. Let go, and you will find peace. That is the essence of surrender, a quiet faith in the impermanent flow of things. 2. Seeing the bigger picture. Often, what feels like a loss today turns out to be a blessing tomorrow. Life has a rhythm, and acceptance helps us move with it instead of against it. You may not always understand the reason behind every event, but when you trust the process, you discover that even painful moments have meaning. Sometimes life breaks us open so that something deeper can grow. The Buddha said, just as a lotus rises from the mud, so does wisdom arise from suffering. When you accept both the mud and the bloom, you begin to understand the beauty of the whole. 3. From acceptance comes inner freedom. Real freedom is not about doing whatever you want. It's about being at peace no matter what happens. When you live with acceptance, you're no longer chained by shoulds and musts. You respond to life instead of reacting to it. You see each moment for what it is: temporary, precious, complete. Then even simple things become sacred. A breath, a smile, a quiet morning light. This is the freedom the Buddha spoke of. Freedom that no circumstance can take away. 4. The quiet strength of an accepting heart. An accepting heart is not weak. It takes great courage to face life as it is, without denial, without escape. When you stop running from discomfort, you begin to see that you are stronger than you think. Pain doesn't destroy you. Resistance does. Acceptance makes you resilient, grounded, and kind. As the Buddha said, like a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not moved by praise or blame. When you rest in acceptance, nothing can take away your inner stability. 5. Living mindfully through acceptance. Acceptance and mindfulness walk hand in hand. Every time you pause, breathe, and see clearly, you are practicing acceptance. The Buddha taught that awakening is not a distant dream. It's available in every mindful moment. When you are fully present with whatever arises, joy or sorrow, pleasure or pain, you are free. That freedom is not somewhere in the future. It's right here, in the stillness of this breath. In that stillness, peace unfolds naturally, not forced, not fabricated, simply arising from understanding. 6. The ripple effect of acceptance. When you cultivate acceptance within yourself, it radiates outward to everyone you meet. You become more patient, more understanding, less judgmental, more kind. Your peace becomes contagious. The Buddha said, better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. When your life becomes an example of calm understanding, you don't need to preach. Your presence itself becomes a teaching. The world softens around a peaceful heart. 7. Turning acceptance into wisdom. Acceptance is not the end of the journey. It's the beginning of wisdom. When you stop resisting, you can finally see. You see the patterns that cause your pain, the attachments that create fear, and the beauty that has always been here. That seeing, that clear, open awareness is awakening. The Buddha called it seeing with the eyes of wisdom. And once you see in this way, you can never be the same. Because you realize nothing in this world can truly bind you. Not circumstances, not emotions, not loss. You are free. 8. Living a peaceful life. One moment at a time. Peace is not a destination. It's a way of walking. It's found in each moment you choose acceptance over resistance. understanding over judgment, and love over fear. So today you can start small. Breathe, soften, smile, and whisper to yourself, I accept this moment as it is. That simple act is enough, because every time you accept, you are returning home to the still, silent, peaceful center of your being, and there, within you, peace has always been waiting. A final words. The Buddha's path is not about escaping life, but about awakening within it. When you understand impermanence, you stop clinging. When you stop clinging, you stop suffering. And when you stop suffering, you discover peace, not somewhere else, but right here, now. Acceptance is not resignation. It is the deepest form of love, for yourself, for others, for the world as it truly is. So breathe deeply, smile softly, and remember, peace doesn't come from changing life, but from changing the way we meet life.